that Ja'far was the one who most resembled the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in handsomeness, in eloquence. That he was the spokesperson when they made the first hijrah. And he was the one that they chose because of his handsomeness and his eloquence to talk to the negus of Ethiopia about their situation. Right? And so after Ja'far was killed, the emir became Abdullah ibn Rawah, and then he was slain. This is something that the messenger of Allah foresaw. And the news reached him before the messenger came from them, because he actually said, I've seen Ja'far. Because Ja'far was holding the flag with this hand, this arm got cut off. He picked it up with this hand, this arm got cut off. He leaned down with his mouth and picked the flag up like this, and they beheaded him. And the messenger of Allah seen Ja'far flying into the heavens with two wings. That Allah had replaced his arms with two wings. So finally, when the messenger reached the Sahabas, and they heard the news that these three men had been killed, they began to weep profusely. And the messenger of Allah told them, why are you weeping? They said, why should we not weep when the best of us had just been killed? Like, you're talking about the cream of the crop have just been, why should we not weep? The messenger of Allah gave them a command, stop weeping. And then he began to tell them why. He began to explain to them that this deen will go through different phases. They will be like a perennial plant, you know? You know how like during the winter time, there's a growth, it starts with a weakness, then the plant emerges, and then when the fall comes, the leaves fall off the tree, and the plant kind of goes into this kind of metamorphosis and kind of disappears back into the ground, and then next time it emerges even stronger. Like if you plant a perennial plant, it'll come back next year even stronger with more bulbs and more flowers. This is how this deen is. And what he was explaining to them, this will be the course that you will see until the end of time. However, what he said in a hadith, he also said, I do not know which is best. La adri, I do not know which is best, the beginning of my ummah or its end. Because I am at its beginning and Imam al-Mahdi is at its end. As well, he said, and Isa ibn Maryam. So you know how, like, for example, you have some fireworks, and then in the beginning it's nice, right? But that final kind of conclusion, this is the time that we're in now. Where we're going to begin to see the manifestation of the tremendous miracles promised at the end of time. Yeah, there's going to be some trials, but you're going to see tremendous help from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is the glad tidings that he was trying to give his ummah. So not only was he a prophet, but he was also a consoler. Right? And this is something that the emir of the jamaat have to be. That when everybody else is kind of crumbling under the pressures of the trial, they have to tell them, man, stop it, man. Pull yourself together and let's continue. He has to console the hearts of the people who are underneath his charge and to remind them that victory is ours. And so this is the glad tidings of the believers, to the believers. We also wanted to discuss, and you can find this in chapter 10, we sent it in your emails, concerning the Prophet ﷺ also said every 100 years there will appear at every head of century a mujaddid who would renew the deen. He also said that there will be 12 of them. And Sheikh Uthman was the 11th mujaddid. And he said that there will be no more mujaddid after me. And the proof of this, right, for those who do not know the experience, there has not been anyone who has accomplished anything as far as land and the Khalifa and knowledge-wise like the Sheikh who has done completely. There's been mujaddids of knowledge. There's been mujaddids of tasawwuf. Right? There's been people who have tried to establish political government, but no one has established what the Shaykh has established all together at the same time. In the course of a 30-year teaching span, going from a community of students to where they're dominant in controlling the land politically and economically. This is the reality. I think that the brother's asking, can some people some of the brothers move forward. You can come over here if you like, inshallah ta'ala. There's other people coming. One of the things that we want to mention about the Shehu, because it's going to tie into our next speaker, Imam Abdul Kabir. One of the things we want to mention is the vision of the Shehu. There is something that's called Hashf. Hashf means an unveiling, and then there's something called Fath. Fath means an opening. The Shehu had a Kashf, an unveiling at the age of 36 years old, where he became aware of every single molecule in his body, every nerve, every muscle. Where he was able to hear things near, afar, as if they was near. That he was able to smell, right, the disobedience of a person as well as the obedience on a person. Like Allah Ta'ala kind of heightened his senses. This is what the unveiling, gosh. And then at the age of some 40 years and some months, that the Shehu had another experience. After going from Rabi Allah all the way around back to Rabi Allah, taking an oath of silence and doing nothing other than the salams and the Prophet salam, that he had what was called a Fatul Akbar. This great opening, where the Prophet salam brought him into the presence of Allah Ta'ala, where there was Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, Umar ibn Khattab, Usman ibn Affan, Ali ibn Abi Talib, may Allah be pleased with them, where there were Malaika, right? Where there was Sheikh Abdul Qadir Jilani, where there was Sheikh Muqtada al-Khunti, where there was the Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam. And this was in the place where the Prophet salam told the Shehu rahimullah, right? I am your guide and you will never go astray. And then Sheikh Abdul Qadir Jilani, right? Because our tariqah is the Qadariyah for the hour. Sheikh Abdul Qadir Jilani made an announcement in his presence, Ya Allah, this Imam is from me. And then he girded him with a sword of truth. Right? And then he tied the turban on his head, and on the turban it had the letters Kuhu Allahu Ahad going up around, and he tied a turban on his head. And then the mission was given to him. To call the people to Allah, right? To establish the jihad, right? And to establish like this kind of spiritual refinement. And the Shehu, at first, the first two of these were easy for him because he was already doing it. But establishing the jihad, that he knew that it was going to take more support. And Allah Ta'ala showed his son, Muhammad Bello, in an armor made of light. And this glad in the Sheikh, Rahimullah. It said, then an angel, right, called out in the four directions, answer the da'i of Allah, answer the call of Allah. As again, the messenger of Allah was the da'i of Allah calling people to Allah, and the Shehu was the da'i calling people to Allah. Calling the people from the fourth, an angel was saying, answer this. What are we trying to say? That the Shehu Rahimullah, in another account from Infaq al-Maysur, that there was, Muhammad Bello writes, that there was this righteous woman who foretold the coming of the Shehu. This is a very key point. That there was this righteous woman, Hani, Rahimullah, Fulani, who foretold of the coming of the Shehu and his Jamaat. Why is this so important? This is important because there's some misunderstandings about a woman's place, right, in Islam. Those misunderstandings shouldn't happen in our Jamaat. Right? Because in our Jamaat, there is historical precedence of women rising sometimes higher than men, spiritually. Some of our ulama said that the reason why the Shehu was the way he was, it wasn't because of his sitting with the great ulama and his father. It was because of his grandmother and his mother and his aunties who raised him to a point, and then they turned him over to the men. Do you know that you learn more in your first 8 years than you learn from 9 to 80? So in our tradition, African women have always been righteous. In our tradition, we've never had no conflict with sister, you just stay over there in your place. No, that's not our tradition. That may be the Arab culture. It's not our culture. That may be in Afghanistan that you stayed locked away somewhere. That's not in our tradition. That's foreign to us. Our women have always been part of the Tajdeed movement, shoulder to shoulder, learning and teaching. But in her prophecy, she said there will appear a wali from the Awli of Allah in these lands. And he will be from the Fulani, and they would not be the regular Fulani. They will not herd cattle, because the Fulani are known for herding cattle. But they will revive the Sunnah. Right? They will establish the deen, they will establish the millah. But the millah means government, Islamic government. And it says that the name of the Shehu, Rahimahullah, will fill the horizons. And those who are fortunate amongst his time, she said, they should follow him. All of you should know that we are still under the time of the Shehu. Right? I believe Amir Hamza, he picked up one of the pouches that said Noodle Zaman. He is the light of this age. His light will not be eclipsed until he connects with the light of Imam al-Mahdi. We are still in that age. And those who are fortunate enough to follow him amongst us, they know that. Those who maybe you're not so certain yet, maybe you haven't tasted it yet, maybe you haven't done enough research, right? That's something that you have to work out. But for those of us who know, and these are the brothers and sisters that I am appealing to during this retreat, what I'm saying to you, that if you know that the Shehu or Rahimahullah is the last mujaddid, and that you're fortunate to be in this jamaat, then it's time to take this thing to a whole nother level. You should no longer be like wavering. It should be absolutely clear to you, and we have to take this to the next level. So we just wanted to mention that to kind of get it started. We are also here, and by the way, right, I have to say this to tie this in. By the way, how did we get to where we are here? We were explaining to some of our people in LA during some talks that they call like the slave trade, right? They call it the Great Interruption. Because it severed ties, man. It severed lineage. It was like somebody took an axe, man, to a tree and just chopped off all the limbs. It's like the electrical lines were cut between the poles. One of the things that the Shehu prophesied when they was given their first victory, that we would enter into a new age called Zaman al-Nasara, the age of these kind of Roman Christians. That they wouldn't be people of the book. They will be the people who will be kind of this kind of Roman mythology combined with Christianity. Right, that's what we see in these lands. For example, right, the Christmas trees and Easter, all of that is Roman mythology. That they just kind of been bastardized inside with Christianity. The Shehu promised that after seeing this vision, that we enter this new age of the Zaman al-Nasara, this age when these Romans will be dominating the entire planet. The Shehu told his people that there will come a time when they come that you will make hijrah, and those who make hijrah will take the light with them. Where it will remain, this is the cold part, where it will remain until it emerges again. There is no one who have looked at the affair of our Sheikh Muhammad Sharif and what he has been able to do, who don't understand that he is the causative factor that Allah Ta'ala used for the light of the Shehu to emerge globally. No one knew about the Shehu in this land. And then Allah Ta'ala, as we say, the brothers in LA, the Sheikh said it himself, and then Allah Ta'ala, he said, then Allah Ta'ala assisted me with a young brother from South Central, LA, Imam Jidadu. Created a Siyasi website, beaming the light of the Shehu globally. This is the reality, man. And then the Sheikh fused us together. He fused our spiritual lines, and some of us lineage. There were some brothers who came from this land, from Oakland, who married into the Sultan's family. Ex-gangbangers. Married into the Sultan family based on the Sheikh's relationship with these people. This is an immense reality. When the historians look upon what the Sheikh was able to do, they're going to realize that this was the most immense thing that happened amongst the enslaved people that in America. They're talking about W.E.B. Du Bois and all these guys. But listen, when it's all over said and done with, what occurred with Sheikh Muhammad Sharif bringing this life back here and infusing this back together.